Are we at peak maximum panic right now? The relative valuation charts tend to confirm this. We all know how Bitcoin went on a massive rally since beginning of the year, 70% roughly. And we also know that Bitcoin relative to ETH did quite nicely. Now what's also interesting is that the altcoins, measured as in total 3, did not do as great as Ethereum. So since beginning of the year, the altcoins underperform Ethereum. So the less risk something has, the better it tended to perform. Bitcoin outperformed Ethereum, Ethereum outperformed the altcoins. Now this is not only observable within crypto, we can also see this in traditional markets. Look at this. Gold relative to the S&P 500 also went up with this banking crisis. We also see over the very long term that the altcoins minus the stablecoins relative to Bitcoin tend to underperform. Now, all of those charts have in common that we might potentially see a turnaround. Bitcoin versus Ethereum is somewhat balanced, but look at the altcoins relative to ETH. They are now very, very cheap. They used to be cheaper once, but that's when Ethereum really went on a massive rally, and then afterwards the altcoin rotation happened. In general, they tend to trade in somewhat of a range though, and they are now historically pretty cheap. We also see that gold relative to the S&P 500, it might be peaking, because very often around the current relative pricing, gold tended to turn around. Now there's two ways how this could resolve. The first way is that we are simply too optimistic, that risk on assets simply went too far, that there was too much hope that monetary tightening will stop, and that actually anything with some kind of leverage should come down. So Bitcoin goes back to its best exponential moving average, back to its best simple moving average. We get our retracement to maybe 23, 22K. And then that fake out simply gets forgotten. That's one way how this could resolve. The other way could be that asset inflation continues and that the money moves from the less risky Bitcoin up to Ethereum first. So Bitcoin would lose versus ETH, and when that happens and the upside for Ethereum is gone, that the altcoins gain versus Ethereum. So a classical rotation from Bitcoin to ETH to the alts. Very hard to anticipate what will actually happen. What's interesting is how currently the stablecoin dominance is developing. So this here is DAI, Tether and USDC, and puts the market cap of those three stablecoins in relation to total 3, to all the altcoins. This is currently relatively low. There is an inverse correlation here. In other words, when there's a lot of money in stablecoins, then risk on assets tend to be depressed. So Bitcoin, ETH and alts tend to be low in price, and vice versa. When the stablecoin dominance is pretty low, then people might be selling off their volatile cryptos and get into stablecoins again. Just requires one bearish news. This of course assumes that we stay in those ranges. Over the very long term, we see there is stablecoin adoption, becomes more and more of a part of the altcoin market. And since May of 2022, so a bit under a year, we are in a relatively tight range here. What this would imply, if this actually does happen, it would imply that Bitcoin goes back down, that Ethereum might follow to a certain degree, but probably not as much since it also didn't rally as much, and that there's still no altcoin rally happening anytime soon. Now I'm simply just standing on the sidelines and continue to watch. I still think over the very, very long term that Bitcoin is very, very cheap. I enjoy DCAing into BTC. And even if we do see a short-term retracement, I don't panic. I think the current long-term risk versus potential reward for BTC is very, very sound. And the regulatory risk for Bitcoin is also way smaller than for anything else. Ethereum might be declared a security. The altcoins, same thing. There is currently quite a bit of war against crypto, but I don't really see this happening for Bitcoin. So if you're looking for an investment that has upside potential, that has, in my opinion, limited downside potential, and that can be held over many years without having to watch crypto channels every other day, then dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin is your bet. And simply just offload whenever we get really, really high, as in somewhat close to the old all-time highs at 60, 70K. Stay safe out there. The banking crisis isn't yet over. Look at this. This is the Deutsche Bank chart relative to the German DAX. So how did one of Germany's largest banks relatively perform? This is a long-term underperformance of 94%. And especially in the recent days, we also saw quite a bit of a crash. So this might be the next kind of bailout that we're looking at after Silicon Valley Bank, after Credit Suisse. Deutsche Bank might be next. And as Jerome Powell said, lowering rates is not his base case right now. So he stays tight. He rather lets the world bail out all the financial institutions, and only once the pain is too massive, that's when the policy might turn around, or when of course the inflation rates come down. But this might be rather a dream than become a reality. So when does it make sense to get in altcoins? When does the next altcoin rotation happen? We get like 400% outperformance versus Bitcoin. I made a video just about that. That's the one over here. Looking forward to see you in that video, and thanks for watching this one. Bye bye.